Welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel Podcast with Jimmy and Dino.
And sometimes Jared.
Down the Barrel Podcast is brought to you by the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association
and wolf.report.
Dead Nuts Outdoors, creators of the most realistic 2D archery targets on the market. Practice how you hunt. Hit it dead nuts. Visit deadnutsoutdoors.com to gear up. And today we're here with Juliet with Stern Game Recovery. How's it going?
It is going. I'm glad to be here, glad to be alive, and we're ready to rock.
Yeah. No, glad you made the trip over from Bemidji, right?
You betcha.
Okay, perfect.
You betcha.
You betcha.
Oh, you betcha.
That's definitely some Bemidji talk there.
Oh, hey, watch it. We're still in northern Minnesota.
Awesome.
Fell out of the keg and cork and ended up here.
Emphasis on fell.
I think when you're talking keg and cork, it's more of a stumble.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Either way, you got to be a victim of gravity. You're never
Right.
like, it's not your own volition.
Right.
Well, I know we're here to talk about Juliet,
Yes,
but
but
I'm a big fan of the Kingston Trio. Anyone else here?
I don't even know what
I
you're
don't-
talking
I don't
about.
know what that is.
Jesus. All right.
Oh, boy.
Kingston Trio, anyway, they did a live concert at a college way back in the day.
Mm.
And the guy is like telling jokes up on stage. And he was talking about how everybody came stumbling out of the bar to get to this stage to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, I wouldn't have tripped. I would have been fine. But Jimmy stepped on my hand. I just think that's like one of the best jokes to ever come out of a concert.
And honestly, yeah, back in the day, yeah. Keg and cork, bottoms up, yeah, all those. That was the thing.
All right. Well, you guys have some homework.
Yeah, what did you say it was?
The Kingston Trio.
That sounds like a orchestra or something.
They're from like the 50s, 40s.
Dude,
even. I don't even
you're
know.
younger than me. Why are
Yeah.
you talking about the 50s?
It might be the 60s.
He's just
I don't
aghast that we don't know about this band from
I
the
know.
40s or 50s.
I mean, they're kind of legendary. But I really
believe
do.
you.
I really do need to know the era. I love the music.
They're legendary, but
Okay.
we don't know them.
Yeah,
Right.
they're legendary, but he's got to look it
But
up.
yeah, so while Jared Googles,
Yeah, let's get back
so
on
get some
topic
music,
here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
50s and 60s.
okay.
Yeah, big difference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So I was right, as usual.
Good job.
All right, so Juliet, so tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll kind of get in the Stern Game Recovery and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yep.
So
You're from
All right.
Bemidji.
yep,
Yeah, you asked for it. I am from Bemidji. Lucky me. No, we work in the Bemidji area. We travel within about, I'd say 100 miles in any given direction. And I lick arrow fletchings and army crawl through bear tunnels for a living. I am a professional wounded game tracker. So
Do you really lick arrows?
Oh, every day.
What does that tell you?
I want to know whether it's in the right part of the body cavity or the gross part of the body cavity.
Mm.
And there's no faster way to tell than when you lick it and you gag. So I wish I was
God.
kidding. My mama did not raise me right. I lick the arrow and that'll tell me fast if it's
So
gutty.
can you tell the difference between? I mean, let's get real close to the gross spot and the good spot. Can you taste liver?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
The way that I would describe that is not polite to say on the air. It tastes really heavy, really dense, like you just sucked on a penny.
Okay.
And you can use your imagination from there.
Mhm.
But anything between like the back of the lungs, liver, and further back into the gut cavity, you can absolutely taste it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I recommend it. They don't even make dewormers for what I'm doing on the daily, but it is effective, man.
So-
Don't try it at home, but it works.
So, Juliet, I am not a professional game recovery person, but I feel like you're doing the dog's job.
I am the interpreter, I am the chauffeur, and I am the person who holds on for dear life and tells the hunters to keep up. But realistically, the dog is still doing 90% of the work.
So why isn't the dog licking the arrow?
Oh, she would absolutely, but she try as I might, man. She doesn't speak English. I can't get her to tell me what she's thinking about. If I could ask for one superpower on God's green earth, it would be like telepathy, like being able to read Stern's mind. It wouldn't even have to be all dogs, just Stern. That would be fine because there's so many cases where I have no idea what she's thinking about, but she's pulling a rabbit out of a hat, man. Like she's working some kind of witchcraft magic. I don't know. So she knows way more than I do. And it's the least I can do to lick an arrow once in a while and be able to say, I know we're going to find this animal. It's gutty. I just don't know where it is
It's
yet.
gutty.
Yeah, hold on. Here we go.
gutty.
It's gutty. That's a good thing in my world, but not so much for, your average Joe
It's
hunter.
gutty.
Yeah,
I need to put that on a t-shirt
It's
and
gutty.
Be
sell it.
careful.
It's gutty.
It's gutty. I feel like you would need like a really dramatic narration to go with it. Like you need like a
Right.
sound like it's gutty.
Right.
Really exciting.
That could be a new DTB shirt.
It's gutty.
It's gutty.
And then the quotation, Stern Gamer. It's a gutty.
I do need royalties for that. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm the one who invented that.
You
did.
Have you ever licked an arrow and been like, oh, that was a Texas heart shot?
Yes. There's no dignified way for me to answer that. Yes, that's happened. Yes, it's gross, but it's better me than me having like the hunters, 12-year-old kid do it. I can't tell you how often the hunters are there with their like youngins, they got the sprouts. They want to see the dog work. And I'm like, tell your kids to sit in the car until we're ready to go, because they're going to watch me do some questionable stuff and they're going to try it at home. Like I'm all about the forensics, just because it's my job as the human half of the team to know what we're in for, be able to tell the hunters, like on a real professional level, here's what we're looking at. Here's my educated guess as to what you might have hit. Here's statistically the average distances that a liver shot deer is going to go, or this bear is shot in the guts, so we need to let it sit for longer. I'm going to come back to see you tomorrow morning. And in those cases, it's my responsibility to keep my dog safe, make sure that we're using our time effectively. We're not jumping a live animal out there. And that comes from sometimes licking an arrow and doing some gross stuff to figure out a means to an end. But we get there.
Right. So like, when you get to, you've been doing lots of recoveries in the last few weeks.
We've been staying pretty busy.
Right. Because I see the successful ones on Facebook, on your
thank
Facebook.
You. I'm glad somebody pays attention to that.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I do my homework on like these two.
Hey, I've been looking at Facebook.
So yeah, when you get to a site, what's the first thing you do?
Ooh, introduce myself, ideally, because I never have any idea where I'm going.
I suppose.
I meet so many people in the course of a season, and I've been doing this professionally for like 4 or 5 years now. My first season, I wouldn't say I was doing it professionally. I was just holding on by the seat of my pants. But I've been doing this for years, and so there's a lot of scenarios where even a hunter who has worked with us in the past knows me by name. They know what I drive. They're so excited to see me. And I have no idea who they are. So my very first step is making sure that I am where I think I need to be, and I'm not going to get shot at by an angry neighbor for trespassing on their driveway. But realistically, we show up. Before I even get the dog out of the truck, I want to talk with the hunter. Like I said, those forensics. Where was the deer standing or bear when you shot it? What was it doing? What did the animal do immediately after you shot? What are you shooting? If you're an archer, do you have your arrow? How far have you tracked it so far? An interview. And realistically, there's a point at which it's more about establishing rapport with that hunter, giving him some confidence that maybe I know what I'm doing. Because once the dog and I hit the ground, I have very little bandwidth to do much chit-chatting. A lot of the time, I am just uttering the worst swear words you can think of, and I am blasting through deadfall and vaulting over stuff like it's parkour out there, keeping up with a dog who loves her job and wants to find that animal faster than we can move. So I get all of the chit-chat out of the way. I try to get that interview done so I have an idea of what we're in for. And then as soon as the dog gets out of the truck, it's all business from there.
Rock and roll.
Sounds like a good strategy.
Right. Right.
I think at this point, I've gotten it down to about as close to a science as it's ever going to get. So the process, I'm telling you, at this point, when the Google Maps lady, like narrating on my car speaker, says, "You have arrived," the dog starts whining. She's jumping. It sounds like I have a velociraptor in the backseat that's just crashing around. She's ready to go. So we have a routine. It's always a very similar drill. I joke that these hunters who have worked with us more than once probably feel like they're in Groundhog Day, because it's always the same spiel from me. But I like having a process. I like getting that stuff on autopilot because, sometimes I'm really hungover and I know exactly what I'm doing, so I don't have to think
you don't have
too
to
much.
think about it. Yeah,
And then once the dog gets out, man, a lot of the time she takes it from there, and I'm just interpreting for the hunter's sake, saying, here's what the dog's doing. She's working through a scent pool, or she just missed a turn, but she's working her way back to it, or hold on real quick. This is about to get hairy. Your bear is somewhere in this thicket. I just don't know where yet.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So you can tell that.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, like I said, if I could spend $1 million to get a superpower, if I could wish upon a star, it would be to be telepathic and just know what Stern is thinking. But the next best thing is to have as many years behind that dog as I do. I know that dog like the back of my hand, and she is a very fun dog to work with because she's really easy to read. I can tell you what she's thinking about just by the way she's holding her tail. And usually I'm really only staring at her butt. That's all of her that I can see. I'm 30 feet behind her, like attached to her by a length of climbing rope. And I'm just watching that tail. So I can tell more or less what we're looking at just based off of really subtle body language like that. But that's what makes me ideally a pretty effective canine handler, is having that kind of relationship with my canine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Stern is what kind of dog?
She is a purebred German Shepherd.
Okay.
And everybody and their grandfather is shocked to hear that fact because she's a shrimpy little animal. Man, she is not a big dog. She is like 55 pounds soaking wet. She is a Czech working line German Shepherd, which for people who aren't nerds about canine work, it doesn't really matter. All it means is they breed them lean and mean out in the Czech Republic, and that's the kind of dog that she is. So she's not content to be, she has to be doing. She's a very go, high drive dog. But she's a very different animal than I think some people are expecting when they hear German Shepherd. Mm-hmm. But she is a purebred German Shepherd. She's 5 years old. And she has been doing this since she was a sprout, like 6 months old or so. We are at this point, we carry 2 certifications from United Blood Trackers, basically just proving to a third party, a judge who's been doing this 3 times as long as I have, that we know what we're doing. And outside of that, she is a professional wildlife detection dog. We participate in conservation detection, helping with wildlife research all over the country. She's also trained to help me forage for wild mushrooms and do some of that fun stuff,
so
extracurriculars
cool.
on the side. Really just, we're both not much for staying indoors. So anything we can do to keep each other busy, me and that dog, we're doing it.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And did you do all that training yourself?
I did.
Wow.
I did. You know, I, in a different lifetime, used to be a professional dog trainer. I actually started my career in narcotics detection. When I first bought Stern as an itty bitty puppy, it was with the intention of continuing narcotics. But as it turns out, yeah, I'm not much of an indoor cat. I really didn't enjoy the parts of the job that had to do with staying inside, sweeping rooms and vehicles and supply closets and stuff, which is 90% of what the job was. But I knew I wanted to work with dogs. So when I encountered a tracker who's since retired in our area, but who taught me quite a bit when I was first starting out, when I met her, I was kind of off to the races because I knew that I wanted to work with dogs. And when I found out about wounded game recovery, I was 20 years old. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I have ever heard of in my entire life. Teach me everything you know. And here we are. It worked out pretty good for me, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right. You're doing all, and you do bears, deer.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Anything else?
So in the state of Minnesota, it is only legal to use a trained tracking dog to recover deer and bear. Those are the only 2 species you can track. In other states around the country, it is legal to use trained dogs to recover like turkey or coyote or mountain lions, what have you. Not that we have a whole lot of mountain lions in Minnesota, but you know. But in Minnesota, by the letter of the law, it is only legal to use these dogs for bear and deer. But we do a lot of both.
Yeah. So could you use your dog to track, let's say, a lost horse?
You know, I do know other tracking teams who do that kind of work.
Okay.
And believe it or not, lost pets is actually a pretty booming, I won't call it an industry because it really is a service. But it is a service that a lot of people are getting into nowadays. I personally don't do that kind of service. I direct folks to other teams who might, or groups like the Retrievers in Minnesota who are specialists in recovering lost pets. But theoretically, yes. The reason I don't do that stuff has to do with the way that the dogs are trained, and specifically my dog is trained, where you're really, in particular, looking for an animal that is emitting a high concentration of adrenaline, cortisol, oh shit, I'm in trouble hormones, a mortally wounded animal. Stern is very highly trained for specifically that scent profile from a mortally wounded deer or bear. That's why blood tracking dogs is a total misnomer. We don't need blood at all in order to track an animal. She is looking for that scent emitted primarily in deer from the interdigital scent gland between the toes. In bear, there's the petals, sweat glands on their feet, but also I think there's an element of that target odor of adrenaline, cortisol being released from the animal's breath, their saliva, their urine, their coat. You know, bears have a scent and an oil gland associated with every single hair follicle in their coat. So they are dumping scent. It's actually much easier, I think, for the dogs to track a bear than it is for a deer. But overall, I mean, that scent profile is so unique, and I want to be so specific about that I don't track lost horses. I get a lot of calls, believe it or not, for lost tortoises. Lost pets, dogs, cats, but tortoises in particular are a call that you get a couple times a year.
Well, it is Bemidji.
Yeah, right.
Bemidji.
Man,
tortoise capital of Minnesota. I don't know.
I couldn't account for that if I tried, but we do get a lot of people asking for help in that vein. I personally don't do that, but I do know other tracking dog teams who have tried
it's
it.
possible.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense. And I was going to ask you the question. It's like, do you need blood? But you answered that too.
Yeah, I'm good like that. Like I said, I will talk until the cows come home. I have the coolest job in the world, but man, oh man, there's so much to talk about. So be careful because I'll just rip your questions through without you getting the chance to ask them. But yeah, no, the interdigital gland stuff, the hormone scent tracking is a really important part of what we do. So understanding how it works, I feel like, is half the battle with hunters who maybe don't know what we can do for them because they may have a shot land in a place they didn't intend it to. They say, I don't have a blood trail at all. They may not even know that we can help them because they don't have a blood trail, but we don't need blood. I would say easily over 2/3 of the bears that we successfully recover, bears that are dead, the dog and I find, at the drop of a hat, those bears are generally not bleeding and would never, ever have been found without us because there is not a visible blood trail. We don't need it. It's pretty slick, honestly. A really nice bear track like that, where the fat and hide occludes the wounds, there's no external bleeding. It makes us look like magic. I love those calls because you can rest assured that the hunter understands the gravity of what you were able to do for him. They never would have found it without you. And we don't need that blood trail. We just need that animal to say, "Oh shit, I'm going home. Like I am in a bad way."
Right.
So what's the furthest that you've had to track a bear or even a deer or both?
Ooh, both. Well, deer statistically are marathon runners. They tend to go a heck of a lot farther than a bear does. I would say the furthest we've successfully recovered a bear, because we've tracked them for miles, but they're still up and walking.
Yep.
The furthest we've had a bear die is a little over a mile. I do not know what that bear was on, but I would love to get my hands on some if I could, because it was going over a mile. And it actually, I think the only reason that bear died where it did is because it drowned in the middle of a pond. And my dog actually swam out to it and stood on it like a log. I didn't see that it was a dead bear at first. I kind of thought she was messing around. I was a little unimpressed. I was like, "Hey, dude," she looks at me and she's got a mouthful of bear fur. And she looks at me like I'm an idiot. That bear swam to the middle of a pond and drowned or died and floated out there somehow, but about a mile.
Jeez.
For deer, I think our successful recoveries have probably been in a similar vein of distance, but we've tracked deer and confirmed with blood, this is your animal for miles.
Yep.
It's more a matter of where the animal is hit that dictates the distance that they'll go. But every once in a while, dude, you get some that are they're like free range crackheads out there. They're just going. The smaller the bear is, the further they tend to run too. So that's always a factor as well. It's never boring.
No,
you never know what you're going to get.
Wow. Right. And you're out there doing these recoveries at night too?
So for deer, 24/7. It all depends on when the deer was shot, and based off my interview with the hunter, how long I think we need to wait in order for it to be an effective use of our time and that it's going to be a dead deer. For bear, because of the kind of dog that I am working with, who she will start a fight. She will not win a fight, but she will start a fight. She wants that bear so bad. All she wants in life is to bite a bear in the ass. Really, that's her favorite part. So I personally, as a general rule, I won't track bears at night. Generally, a lot of the calls that we get are in the evening. So these hunters sat in the evening, they shot their bear close to last light, let him sit overnight. We'll be there at 4 a.m. Because that gives them plenty of time to die. The safety risk to both me and the hunter and the dog is just a lot less. And also, if we go out there and we bump that bear out of a bed at 3 a.m, dude, I'm going to have to come back in daylight anyways. Then I'm going to be crabby and sleep deprived. Bear, first thing in the morning, deer, dude, 24/7. Just depends on when they die and when it makes sense for us to come in.
I suppose. So do you carry?
During bear season, yes. The goal is never to have to use it, and that's why I'm such a hard ass about those wait times. There have been enough scenarios, even since I started 5 years ago, where other trackers I know have been attacked by bear. There was that case, I don't know if you guys heard, a year or two ago, 12-year-old kid was hunting a bear over in Wisconsin. They brought a tracking dog in to find it. The tracking dog encounters the bear, comes flying back to the people with this bear hot on his heels. The bear attacks this kid's dad. And this 12-year-old kid had to shoot that bear on top of his dad. Like just a horrific situation. So with safety issues like that in mind, to put it lightly, I do carry a sidearm during bear season, but the goal is never to have to use it, especially considering we are a bear recovery team. We are not out there hunting these bears. Our role is not to finish the hunt for the hunter. Our role is to find that bear dead and recover it for them. You know what I mean? Right.
So when these hunters call you on the phone, what's the conversation usually sound like?
Ring, ring. Hello, this is Juliet. No, it's always a little different. Some folks have never heard of us before. They've never worked with a tracking dog, no idea what to expect. And sometimes they're folks that have heard interviews like this, or they've worked with tracking dog teams in other states or in other parts of Minnesota even, and they know exactly what's up. They say, Juliet, here's what I got. My arrow is, it hit a touch further back than I meant. It's gutty. I know I need to wait overnight. I'm just calling to get you booked in the morning. Other times it's a little bit more, I don't know what I hit and I don't know what I'm doing and I need help, but I don't have a blood trail. I don't even know where to start. So my job on those phone calls is to establish what's going on, where might you have hit it. If you don't know, then there might be clues in the animal's behavior after the shot. How far have you tracked it? Has it bedded in the distance that you've tracked it before you called me? Really, like I said, the forensic stuff, the hunter interview, helping me figure out when it's an appropriate time for us to come in and give her a go.
Right.
But for the most part, we book up really quickly. It can be really difficult to get in touch with me during some parts of the season, especially during opener weekends. So I try my best to get all my calls lined up the night before. So if we've got hunters listening who haven't worked with a tracking dog before, my number one advice when it comes to that phone call would be to call the absolute second that you think you need help. Call as soon, like from the field. If you've got cell service, you're looking at your blood trail, you see that last spot of blood and you don't see anything else to go off of, I would shoot a call to your local tracker to see if they're available in the first place or if they can give you advice over the phone. But the sooner you call, the sooner we can help you. Because that's a big hiccup that I tend to run into is hunters don't know that we're available or they don't think to call until they've already been out there grid searching for an hour and a half. Well, at that point, I've had 4 other hunters call while you were grid searching and I'm booked up all day tomorrow.
Really? So you're in that much demand then right now?
I won't say unfortunately because I love what I do, but it's never a good day for a hunter who calls us. You know what I mean? Like It's pretty feast or famine. Like I told you, this is the first day since bear season opened on September 1st that I have had no calls. And I think it's just the calm before the storm as this weekend is going to look cool and rainy and the deer hunters will probably be out in the woods. But that said, it's stayed fairly busy for us the last couple of years. Every year there's more and more hunters who are aware that we're an option. They know that we're a safe bet to find their animal. They're more and more willing to call us as their first resort rather than after they've exhausted all of their other options in terms of grid searching and God knows what. We stay fairly busy. On average, the last couple of years, we've tracked about 100 animals a year, give or take.
Wow. How far do you travel?
I try to stay within about 100 miles of Bemidji, depending on a day like
Did
today.
we say that already?
Yeah, if you listened, you would know that.
You don't do research. You don't listen.
I didn't think she said that. I didn't pay attention to that part.
She said that in the beginning.
I forgive you. I say a lot of things.
100 miles in any direction.
That said, on a day like today, if I wasn't sitting in a podcast interview, somebody calls me, ring, Juliet, I'm 150 miles. I might do it. Just because I'm sure you can imagine, having described to you the kind of animal that I share my life with. She is not happy to be sitting at home right now. She's chewing on a bone. She should be relaxing. No, she's fuming that we haven't gone out to do anything yet today. There's been no work calls. So I am mostly concerned with helping as many hunters as I physically can. It just happens that if I start driving much further than about 100 miles out, inevitably there's calls closer to home that have to wait longer to see me. And then we risk animals rotting, in the heat while they're waiting on us. So 100 miles is usually a safe bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at your social medias over the last couple of days, you've recovered some pretty nice bear.
Yeah. We've been really lucky that the handful of calls that we've had for the last few days, I'm off the top of my head, not going to be able to spin you a number for how many animals we've tracked because my brain is like lukewarm mashed potatoes after the last couple of weeks of tracking. But we have found some really nice bears this week, and they've all been scenarios where those hunters were really making the right call to have us come out and help because I don't think that they ever in a million years were going to find those bears without us. Those are the kinds of calls that I like too. At this point in my career, I've gotten to a point where if a hunter calls and I don't think that they are going to need us, I will coach them through over the phone, kind of what to expect, where to start looking, what that animal is likely going to do based off of where it's hit. Most often these wounded animals, they're going for familiar bedding. And frankly, if you shot me, I'd want to go home too, right? Like it makes perfect sense.
Right.
But a lot of the time, if I don't think that they truly need a tracking dog, even if they don't have a great blood trail, I'll try to coach folks over the phone so I can save our time for the people who really genuinely do need our help.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of hunters who have been doing this for longer than I've been alive. I have folks call every week and they say, Juliet, I don't know what happened. I've been hunting for, 50, 60 years. This is the first animal I've ever lost. Calls like that, they really tug at your heartstrings. And I try my best to be 50 places at once. But in situations where I think someone genuinely needs our help and won't be able to find it without us, those are the calls I try my best to take. And those are the recoveries that really mean the most to me personally. if it's an animal that goes 50 yards and they would have found it without us, it just doesn't scratch the same itch, you know?
Right. So, yeah, obviously you've had hundreds of calls, you said, to come track animals. Have you ever had a call where you just go there and it's just like, man, you made a bad shot on this thing?
You know, there's definitely been some scenarios where I think I've made hunters cry.
Yeah.
I've had to learn a little bit more finesse in my time. Part of my job as the human half of the team is a little bit of damage control, helping the hunters understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But really, honestly, 99.99% of the hunters that call us for help, they are genuinely ethical hunters. It's not their fault. The animal turns at the last minute. Their arrow deflects off a branch. You know, shit that happens to the rest of us.
Right.
Most often, it's never a matter of a bad shot so much as it's a matter of a freak incident or a shot that was well placed, ending up where they didn't mean it to through whatever means that they can't control. Okay. Very infrequently do I have a hunter call me and they say, this is what I did. Here was my shot. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but really those are so few and far between. Most of the hunters we work for are, like I said, just phenomenal. They're very ethical hunters. They're doing everything they can at that point because they're calling me in the first place.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right. They made the choice to call you. So they do care about that animal.
Absolutely. And honestly, just the fact that folks call us, I'm never one for as funny as I think I am. And I like to pick on people. I just like to have a good time as we're doing things. I really don't. I don't judge or think poorly of hunters for their shot placement, for the fact that they're calling us in the first place. Because like I said, it happens to the best of us, and it's always going to happen. Like we were just talking, there's hunters who are either liars or there's hunters who that's happened to them at some point in their career. Everybody's done it. Oh yeah.
It happens. There's a million different scenarios out in the woods that can happen on a daily basis when you're out there hunting. So
right.
I mean, I've never had a time where it's gone perfectly.
I mean, what is perfect?
Perfect, clean shot.
You've never had a perfect one?
Well, I mean, I've had good shots, but I mean, it's never worked out perfectly. To where the deer came out exactly where I wanted him to, when I wanted him to,
but like
how I wanted him to.
But you've like had it pile up right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Like that to me is perfect.
Yeah. Surprisingly just dropped dead and you're like, man, wow. Right. Yeah. Track this thing. But yeah.
It kind of circles around. It's like, oh.
Yeah. But that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. And that's why Juliet exists. Yes. To help us when we struggle.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so you have done some work with our friends over at Wheezy Outdoors.
I have. Yeah. And nothing but good things to say about the Wheezies.
Well, that makes one of us.
Well, hang on, I'll call him. I'll put him on speaker for you.
Right. Do it. Yeah. Let's talk to Alice.
Yeah, I'll tell Alice who said hi. No, Alice and Justin over at Wheezy Outdoors are just phenomenal. We work with a pretty good number of guides and outfitters for bear in the Bemidji area. I'd say there's probably 12 or 13 guides that I work with on a very regular basis, where, we're their first call. If they have a client that shoots a bear and maybe the blood trail is not great or they're not able to find it, they know the drill. They're not going to spend all day out there grid searching. They know that we are just plain the more efficient option a lot of the time to come in there and find it for them. Mm-hmm. And when you're a guide or an outfitter, that time is money. Like that's invaluable to them to know that if it's dead, on average, Stern and I are going to find that bear in under 30 minutes. Wow. There's very few cases where it takes much longer than that, especially if you have handled the track well before we get there. There's no grid searching. You didn't bring your buddy's hunting dog out there and hope that it finds it kind of situation. Right. The more walking around that you're doing in the vicinity of a scent trail, you're picking scent up on your shoes and you're carrying it places that the animal didn't go. So when I work with these guides and outfitters who know the drill, they know exactly what to expect from us. They know what I expect from them. Dude, it's like a dream come true. It's amazing. And the Wheezies are phenomenal at that. They trust us to get the job done. They've seen Stern do just some phenomenal work. I've been blown away by some of the rabbits that Stern has pulled out of hats for the Wheezies in their camp. So we have an awesome relationship with them and a bunch of other guides and outfitters in the area that I just am really lucky to work with.
Yeah.
Lots of cool people.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously you've seen lots of wounded animals.
I have.
I'm going to ask the question, what do you think wounds the most animals? Is it archery or is it firearm?
I think the answer that you might expect for that would would be hard to give because firearm season is so short relative to bow season.
Right.
So the numbers that I would have off the top of my head would lean toward archery, sure, but that's because I've got like 3 straight months of archery hunters calling me, whereas and I'm talking, dude, rifle opener is all hands on deck. It's like Armageddon for a tracking dog handler. There's a point at which I stop answering my phone around 3 a.m. Because I have to wake up at 4 or 5 to hit the road. And that's the only reason that I stop answering the phone at all. It is crazy for that first weekend or so of rifle season.
Wow.
So I wouldn't say that it's disproportionate toward archery or toward rifle hunters when it comes to wounding deer. I would just say that we tend to get a pretty wide variety of calls from archery too. Lots and lots of crossbow hunters, lots of mechanical broadheads, lots of fixed blade broadheads. The only common denominator in my experience is that they're all hunters that want to do everything they can. They want to find that deer. And I do find that archery hunters tend to have a better idea of where they've hit that animal. They have to pay very close attention, of course, to where they're aiming. So sometimes they can offer me more information in order to help them track their animal successfully. But overall, like I said, the firearm season is so short. It's just really difficult to say for certain.
Right.
Darn.
But those hunters, they keep you busy.
They definitely do. Like I said, on average, I won't even try to ballpark how many calls we get in terms of like just hunters calling us for help as a whole, but the tracks we are able to physically cover number about 100 a year on average, and that number is rising all the time. I expect this year we'll probably break that ceiling and be closer to like 150 if I have anything to say about it.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
So the question probably everybody's wondering that's listening to this right now is, how much does it cost to have you come out?
Believe it or not, there is not a set fee. I never want cost to be a prohibitive factor that prevents someone from getting a tracking dog. So like we talked about, when I first walked in the door, that's the big question that everybody has. And I think it's really important because, there's no sense in pretending like I don't have a lot of time and money and investment into what I'm doing. The dog's equipment, her vet bills, the gas and car maintenance to get to and from all of these tracks in a year, that all adds up. Like as much as I wish I could put, hugs and wishes and homemade cookies in the gas tank, I've tried it. It doesn't really work out. So I work for tips and I invite hunters to just pay us what makes sense for them. There's not a set fee because I don't want folks who can't afford a set fee to not call us. Because a lot of the time, man, you got to imagine if you're a person who can't afford a couple $100 for a tracking dog, you might really need that meat on the table.
Right.
So I would say it's completely up to the situation. Every track is different. And the generosity of some hunters carries us through other tracks where hunters might not be able to pay me at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think that's great that you don't have that set fee.
Yeah,
I think it should be.
Too.
I mean, it goes, with want and waste, right? And like we want every animal to be recovered.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's not about the money. No one on God's green earth should be tracking because they're trying to be a millionaire. Really, if you're calling for a tracking team, you're having a terrible day. I think that there's a lot of cases where folks would pay as much as they thought it would take to get us out there, but I can't magically make that animal appear dead for you. I never have any idea what we're in for beyond just we're going to give it our best go. We're going to bust our asses for you. And by the end of it, I hope I can at least give folks either a dead animal or some peace of mind.
Right.
But it's really, I wouldn't know how to put a price tag on that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Basically, it'd be just your time. That's the only way you could do it.
Right.
Yeah. Time and mileage, but.
And there are always, every single year, even at this point in my career where, we're professionals. We get the job done. We do good work. There are still cases where it shouldn't be a difficult animal to find, and it is. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, grid searches or having your cousins, buddies, neighbors, maybe found a deer once tracking dog out to help. And then you have to call us. It's factors like that I can't control can always affect how easy a scent line is for Stern. But also, she's a dog. She's a very highly trained dog, but she isn't a robot. Maybe she's having a bad day. Maybe the scent conditions that day are really difficult. Maybe it's really hot or it's really windy. So I would even say I'm not sure I could charge for my time necessarily, because there are situations where an animal may only go a couple 100 yards, but maybe it takes us a long time to figure that out for factors that I can't account for, So that's just another complicating factor in the whole question of price. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, in my career, especially as we've gotten more popular or at least more available for hunters. This is what I do 24/7 during hunting season. I take time off of work where I'm just available on call 7 days a week to track. And I've had to consider, does it make sense for me to continue working for tips? And at this point it does, just because I'm able to help so many hunters that it all comes out in the wash. I'm not going to be a millionaire anytime soon, but the reasons I'm doing it have nothing to do with money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It gets you out in the woods. So
Absolutely. And that's a heck of a lot better than sitting in an office somewhere, right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Into that.
Do you actually hunt?
Not anymore. I would be hard pressed to find the time. This way during hunting season, I get to see a heck of a lot more deer and bear by tracking. No, I grew up hunting, fishing. I'm from Bemidji, so what that area is like. There's not a whole lot else to do out there. So I grew up in it, and I hunted and fished all through my teenage years. But nowadays, it's all canine work for me. It's all tracking. And like I said, I like it better this way. I get to see a lot more smiling faces. I get to see a lot more people. Get to see a lot more deer and bear. It's a good time.
Yeah, I can imagine there's some excitement mixed in there too.
Oh yeah, just a bit.
Tracking those bears has got to be a hoot.
That would be.
I will say too, through the course of my wildlife research, the side of my work that I do the rest of the year outside of hunting season, I really like bears. Really like bears. Anybody who knows me will warn you that I just get to like a micro level of interest when it comes to that. It's really kind of obnoxious. So getting to track wounded bears is like Christmas to me because I get to see so much sign. I get to see how they're moving through the environment, the ways that they're using these god-awful bear tunnels and this horrible cover that's impossible to get to them to. They're doing that very intentionally. They know what they're doing.
Right.
And you don't get to see quite that level of their behavior and the way that they're using their habitat unless you're army crawling through these tunnels after them because you're looking for a dead one. So it's really fun getting to see up close and personal kind of all of the facets of a bear's day up to and including the part where they're shot by a hunter and we have to go in and recover them. It's definitely never boring.
Yeah. So you're out there on your hands and knees chasing that dog, following that dog, going through that thick stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Wherever the dog goes, I am also going. And the downside to that is that the dog is going where the bear went, and the bear is never going somewhere that it's easy for us to follow them. Let me tell you. Like I said, it is personal. It's intentional. They're going through the worst stuff they can because they do not want you to find them.
Really?
So a lot of the time, like I said, they're usually going for home. They're going for familiar cover that they feel safe in. Dude, that stuff sucks. It's so bad. I can't tell you how often I yell over my shoulder. I apologize to the hunter as we're going. I'm like, I hope you like crawling. I'm sorry in advance. Like, I can tell you your bear went here. We're not doing this for fun. I'm not trying to haze you, but you need to follow me and we're going to have to crawl.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So what's craziest recovery?
Oh, God. You want just one?
Wow. I'm down for many stories.
I think that's everybody's question. I can tell you, I have so many stories at this point. I've been really lucky to be involved in some phenomenal dog work, some really cool recoveries that you just never would find without us, and it makes us look like heroes. I've also had plenty of recoveries that are just shit sideways, man. Like it just goes to hell in a handbasket and you're just along for the ride after a point. So I definitely have stories that aren't so flattering for us that I'm not shy about telling because I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't pretend to be done at any point learning. I think I learn something new about our target animal every single track I go out on, or at least I do my best to. So craziest recovery. There was once upon a time a deer we were hired to track that took 2 days, a tracking dog, a kayak, and a fish finder to get our grubby mitts on. Let me tell you how this shit went down. Okay, so this was probably a year or two ago, not very long ago. Now it's still fresh in my memory in my old age. And this hunter, it was late in the rifle season, but was still firearm. And it was just on the bleeding edge of being like gross winter weather outside, So he went out hunting and there was no snow on the ground. It's just, late fall. There's not a whole lot of foliage. It should be a pretty easy time to hunt. You can see the deer coming from a mile away. He's standing at the top of like a hill and there's a pretty nice buck coming by below him. He lines up his shot, everything feels good, shoots the deer, and it takes off. And within probably 10 minutes from the sound of it, he got mollywopped with snow. I mean, almost immediately, like half an inch of snow, covering the blood trail. There's no chance he's going to find this deer at this point. No idea where it goes. So enter tracking dog, stage left the next morning. And we get out there, and sure enough, there's a good amount of snow on the ground. It's actively threatening to snow, and it's just wet and gross and cold. And so we got to get to work in this. But I'm in the back of my head thinking, I'd love for this deer to be dead close by so that I can go home and have a whiskey because it is miserable outside. Famous last words is the tracks you're hoping will go fast. Everything the hunter told me sounded like this could have been a dead deer. Maybe it was a touch further back than he meant it to go. But, like I said, stuff happens out there all the time, and it happens to the best of us. So we get out there, and there's this thing that deer do in the late season during the rut. And it's almost reached like conspiracy theory status in my mind, because it's really easy to ascribe this theory I have to a lot of cases where the deer just isn't behaving the way I want it to. And what I think happens in my mind is that deer isn't releasing the concentrations of scent that the dog is trained to track. They're so rutted out. They're so busy chasing chicks. They just don't even acknowledge that they've been shot. And I have no way to prove this. This is a theory, and a crackpot theory at that. Like I said, there's nothing but my own say-so and my own experience that says that, and a handful of other trackers that I've spoken to that say, oh my God, I think that's the case. But we don't know for certain. That said, I think that some of these deer are so roided out, so full of adrenaline and testosterone as it is from the rut, that they aren't even worried about the fact that their insides are now on their outsides. Mm-hmm. They just keep trucking. They don't smell like that adrenaline cortisol cocktail that the dogs are trained to track. They may be bleeding, they may not be, but whatever it is, you can have a visible blood trail, and the dog still seems to struggle a little bit. Even seasoned, certified, experienced dogs can still have tracks like that where it just... the stars are not aligning, and you just kind of got to muddy it through. And that's where being an experienced handler also comes in, because there are cases where the dog doesn't know everything. They're not supernatural. You may need to help them. This was one of those cases. So we get out there, and like I said, there's snow covering any visible blood at this point, and Stern is busting her ass, and we just aren't making progress with the speed that I prefer to. There are some tracks that you just breeze through and you make it look like a walk in the park, and you can cover a mile in 15 minutes. This was not that. We were working really, really hard, and the whole time it's continuing to threaten just wet, heavy, gross snow. And none of us at this point are dressed for this weather either, mind you. Like we're out there like still prepared for late fall, like balmy 50 degrees. We're not ready for this. I'm certainly not. Rookie mistake, because we were out there for a while. So we're trudging along, and I'm trying to help Stern, and I don't know what's going on with this scent trail. So we're pulling all of the tricks that I know how to pull to help the dog get into an area that maybe the scent is better. And it works. And we finally get into a tree line about 100 yards from where the hunter actually shot this deer, and we're off. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, this is way better. She lines out, she's taking us for a ride, and on a ride we go. The hunter is following behind us, and in my footsteps, in the dog's footsteps, there's blood seeping through the snow where we've stepped on it. And that's the only way that I know that we're on it, other than the dogs say so. But we go like this for, I shit you not, 900 yards. I look at the map. We haven't found a bed. This deer hasn't stopped. It's been just pin drops of blood this whole time. And I'm like, I don't know where you shot this deer, but I know I'm about to lose my toes to frostbite. This is miserable out here. And I don't have much to show the hunters except for these occasional spots of blood, and they're getting frustrated. They're like, oh, what do you know, Juliet? It's your job to know things. Where is this deer? I have no idea. And so we're reaching a point very quickly where it's almost starting to get dark. It's going to start dumping snow on us. I don't have any idea what we're working with here, except that the deer is clearly wounded, because the dog is very interested all of a sudden. She really changed for like 180 change from where she was struggling to where all of a sudden she's on it. She's got it. And we have blood, so we know it's hit. And as I'm about to open my damn fool mouth and tell this poor hunter, I'm like, look, dude, it's so bad out here. It's so cold. I can't feel my feet. Maybe we just call it. Stern's got something. And I mean, like, you know it in your blood and guts. You watch the dog, her head snaps, and you can tell she's got something new. And I shut my mouth real fast. I know better. And I'm watching Stern as she goes up this hill. And mind you, I'm attached to this dog by 30 feet of rope. So I'm going with her. And she's almost to the top of the hill, and she's just cruising, man. Like, she's really got something interesting here. I can't see anything. We come up to this thicket of like buckthorn, nasty, thick stuff at the top of the hill. And all I have time to hear is the dog start roaring, growling, barking. And the hunter goes, there he is. Before the hunter gets almost flattened, this giant buck comes flying out of that thicket at Mach 5, comes down the other side of the hill where the hunter is standing with us hot on his heels, and he's booking it. Like, this buck is out of there. He waited until the last possible second before we were on top of him, before he moved. And that tells me that he's hurt. There's something up with this guy. We are not quiet out there. You know, like I said, we're a recovery team. We're not hunting. I don't care if we're quiet. In fact, if that animal can get out of our way, I want them to get out of our way. But this guy didn't until the last possible second. So in this rigmarole of, okay, I'm grabbing the dog. We're not chasing a live deer. You know, I want to know what's going on here, but I need to get everybody safe. And ideally make sure the hunter's head is still attached to his shoulder to the bottom of this hill. So I grab the dog and I slide on my ass, like just a toboggan. It's not dignified at all. I just slide down the hill. I'm like, there's no way getting down this. There's so much wet snow, and it starts snowing on us, of course, at this point. And the hunter goes, oh, it's the biggest deer I've ever seen. And he's hurt bad, Juliet. He's like, there's so much blood. I said, oh, hell yeah, there's blood. Okay, perfect. So he's been laying in this bed. He's still actively bleeding. Now there's blood on top of the snow. I say, all right, bud, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hold this dog. We're going to stand here where the deer was bedded last, and I want you to go follow him because I want to see if you can get eyes on him and see where he's wounded, right? I'm really towing the line at this point where I'm very careful to be respectful of the letter of the law. We are a recovery team. I am not out there continuing the hunt, chasing a live deer, but now we got the hunter on him. So life should be good. And I'm in the back of my head. I'm like, can I go back to my truck and sit in the heat for a while? No, we didn't get that lucky. So here's how this went. This deer continued to run another, probably 300-400 yards. And he would run like 50, 100 yards and he'd bed. But there's blood on top of the snow. He's still leaking. So the hunter is following him. So I am now in the shoes of, I think, a lot of the hunters who have worked with us, where I'm standing patiently at the last spot that we saw an animal, and I'm waiting for the hunter in this case to call me, the same way that the hunters are usually waiting for me to call them and be like, hey, here's what we got. He does call. Ring, ring. I pick up my phone, and the hunter says, well, I see him. I said, oh, perfect. Awesome. Wait, how bad is he hurt? You know, can you see where he's hit? And he goes, well, I can see him. Yeah, he's out in the middle of the Mississippi River and he's floating dead. This deer booked it. I mean, booked it for another 300-400 yards, loops back around to the riverbank, jumps in and tries to swim because this hunter's hot on his ass. Like the hunter's following along with him. The deer didn't make it. He got out in the middle of the river and started taking on water and dies from, like the shock, you know, the cold water. And he's been at this point wounded for 12, 14 hours, you know, it was too much for him. So he kicks the bucket in the middle of the Mississippi during a snowstorm. And I walk out there to where the hunter's standing, and he and I are looking at this floating brown island in the middle of the river. And this is outside of hip waiter territory, guys. I am not prepared for this, and neither is this poor guy. And we're looking at this deer and we're looking at each other and we're like, we're going to have to get him from, I don't know how. How are we going to do this? Hunter starts making phone calls, and I'm shivering like a chihuahua abandoned in a Walmart parking lot. It's miserable out there. It's snowing actively now. And he gets this eureka moment, and he looks at me and goes, my buddy has a kayak and he lives just up the road. And I say, all right, at this point, I'm invested in this outcome. I want to know where this deer is hit so bad. I want to see this guy. I want to get my grubby mitts on him. We worked so hard for this. It's personal at this point. So we go back to the vehicles. We leave the deer floating in the river. We go back to the vehicles. I load the dog up. We go out. We get this kayak. We come back. And I help the hunter drag this kayak out to the last place that we saw this deer. I'm invested, man. And it's snowing actively, like starting to really pour on us here. And we get out there and we're looking at the river at the last spot we saw this deer. And I'll be damned if it's not gone. God, like there's nothing floating out there. It sank.
Oh, man.
So we get this kayak in the water, and I sent this hunter still hasn't changed his clothes. He's soaking wet. He's been out here all day with us at this point. We sent him out there in a kayak on his maiden voyage. I'm expecting him to sink like the freaking Titanic out there. And I'm trying to like triangulate with him. I'm standing on the shore like, this is where I saw this deer last, you know, sending him out to look, and there's nothing out there. This deer sank. So at this point, it's getting dark, and we're all on the verge of hypothermia, and we need to call it quits, and we got to pack it back to the vehicles. And I'm just mad at this point. My dog worked so hard for this deer, and I don't even have anything to show her for it. She didn't even get to bite him in the ass. She didn't get quite close enough, probably within 2 inches. So we had to call it quits that night, and it doesn't even feel like a recovery. Like, yeah, he's dead, and yeah, we know where he is, but like, do we know where he is? So we're sitting at home that night, and I get a text from the hunter, and he says, I have a plan. And I said, oh God, here we go. And he says, my buddy's got a live scope. He's got a fish finder on his duck boat. We're going to go out there in the morning. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Sure enough, they go out there in the morning, and after 2 straight days at this point of tracking this deer, they dredged him up from the bottom of the river where he had sank.
Oh, wow.
And they get him in the boat, and we finally have at least a dead deer to show for ourselves. But that was by far, like, nobody signs up for that when they shoot a deer. I can't even tell you how much commitment that hunter had to have had to find this guy.
Right.
And especially considering that deer tried to take his head off his shoulders. Like, that deer tried to flatten him like some Mario Kart shit. But we got it. And I hope to God I never have to go through that much rigmarole again for a deer. But at least now I have a blueprint in my head. I know that if you lose a deer in the bottom of the river, a fish finder is going to help you find it.
That is awesome.
Right.
That is so cool.
That was a tough one, but I was at least glad that we were able to find it. And at the end of the day, the hunter didn't have to eat tag soup. You know, the meat was still good. It was so cold. And
Right. I was going to say it had to be pretty chilly in the water.
That's the best case scenario, right?
No doubt.
Like a cold sous vide. It was already cooked.
Yeah, you guys would have ate it.
Oh, yeah.
Sushi leg.
Well, yeah.
That's right.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, we've all had those. Obviously, not any tracking like that, but
No.
a few years. What was it? Was it 4 years ago? 3 years ago? We tracked one of your deer.
Oh,
Forever. And with you saying that, these deer are so hyped up in the rut that they don't even know they're shot. I think that was the case with
I think so.
his deer because it was hitting its scrapes
Bleeding.
and bleeding. And there was blood in every scrape, and it was just walking. It was normal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like that was the same thing. And this deer obviously survived. We never came across it. We actually lost the blood trail because it, quit. So.
Oh, yeah. And they clot up pretty quick.
Yeah,
if they're going to go about their day like they're running errands, like they're not really concerned at that point about eating.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, absolutely. It just goes back to what you were saying.
Yeah.
This deer was bleeding. I mean, just had been shot a couple hours before
Mm-hmm.
and was visiting his scrapes, looking for girls.
And I'll tell you, there are the fun part, the paradox about being an experienced tracking dog handler is that in those situations, the way the dog behaves can tell me one of two things. Because there are some cases, like I think may have been with this fish finder deer, that he was mortally wounded, but he just didn't smell like it. And the dog wasn't super interested until I got her into a different area where the whatever flip switched in his brain that he's like, oh, actually, that kind of sucks. That kind of hurts. That's where she was finally on him. Mm-hmm. So in some cases, you can have a mortally wounded animal. And the only way that I might know it is by licking an arrow or by really being careful about the questions I ask the hunter to figure out what's going on. And the dog might kind of look like, I'm not really into it because the animal just isn't smelling right. Otherwise, the flip side of that coin is that you can have scenarios like with your buck that he's probably not mortally wounded at all. He's just walking through the woods, checking his scrapes, going about his day, chasing chicks. And the dog will look on an established blood trail like she's not interested at all. And I have to warn hunters. I'm like, if this deer is like a shoulder shot, if this is a high back shot, something that's completely non-lethal, you may not be very impressed. Like this may not look like a slam dunk tracking job, even if you have a blood trail, because if that deer isn't releasing that cocktail of hormones that tells the dog, this is what I'm going to get to bite in the ass, the dog's not especially interested. And that's a distinction that I like to maintain because it's information for me as the handler. I don't necessarily want to chase a shoulder shot for 3 square miles. We're working on leash. We're never going to catch up with 99% of these deer. Right. So I don't mind a bit that she tells me, like, I'm not into this. Like, looks at me like I'm stupid a lot of time, frankly. And if it's a shoulder shot or a back whack, something like that, and they're checking their scrape lines, you can have a visible blood trail and the dog is still like, no. But that is, like I said, the paradox is I have to be very careful as the handler to know my stuff and be able to ascertain, is this a situation where the deer doesn't smell right because it's not mortally wounded? Or is this one of those really, really rare situations where the deer is mortally wounded, but it still doesn't smell right for some reason? That's the stuff that keeps you up at night, I swear.
Right.
Yeah.
And we see a handful of those every year. It's not very common. Most often it's a slam dunk. The deer knows they're wounded at the hit site. They sure don't like it. They smell like it. And the dog takes it from there. And we followed all the way through to a dead deer under 30 minutes. Great. Pop the bubbly. Everybody's partying. But there are still those cases that leave you scratching your head. And sometimes I swear I've had circumstances where I really think an animal should be dead based off of all the forensics. The dog seems to think it should be dead. And then we just hit a wall. Like it's like the Martians came in and beamed this animal up to the mothership and there's nothing anymore. And I can't account for that. I still don't know everything, believe it or not. So it's a lot of psychological warfare out there in the woods, believe it or not.
Right. So when you get to a site like that, do you know right away by the dog if you might recover the animal?
A lot of the time, yes.
Yeah.
The exception always proves the rule. I can usually tell based off of the speed, the intensity, the pace that she's wanting to work at, the way she's working a line. I can tell when we're going to find it. Right. And it's a matter of how concentrated those hormones are. Like she wants that bear or that deer 10 times as much as the hunter does. And I tell hunters, like, I know you want your bear or your deer. This dog wants it more. Mm-hmm. So I can usually tell based off the way that we're working, whether that animal is going to be recoverable or not. Just because, like I said, that dog wants it so bad, man. She loves her job. There's nothing she wants on God's green earth more than to bite that bear or deer in the ass. Wow. That's her favorite thing. So, oh yeah, if we're going to find it, she's on it. We're going to find it.
Awesome. So how did you get into tracking?
Yeah, I feel like that's a question that everybody has, and I wish I had a more exciting answer. Honestly, I think back to, I started when I was 20. I had been doing that apprenticing for narcotics detection for a little while there. And I wanted to stick with that because I knew I wanted to work with dogs. And I wasn't even aware at that point in my life that wounded game recovery existed. I actually was working in a place where another woman who did wounded game recovery was working closely alongside me. And I pestered the hell out of that poor lady. As soon as I found out about it, I was like, listen, if you let me come with you, I'll carry all of your gear. I'll answer the phone for you. You don't have to like pay me or anything. I just want to see it. I just want to see the dog work. And she was so patient with me. She was so kind. She took me under her wing and let me follow her around for a full season. And then she laid some training tracks for me and my then 6-month-old puppy Stern. And once I got to watch her and her dog do the work, and I got to watch my dog knock it out of the park and really take to it very quickly, I was like, okay, sold. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my career. And here I am. So honestly, Minnesota legalized the use of trained tracking dogs to recover wounded game in 2019. So it's actually still fairly new in Minnesota in the grand scheme of things. There's some states on the United Blood Trackers network of statewide networks, that is. Some states where it's been legal for decades, where they have just a huge history of tracking dogs available to them. And in Minnesota, we really didn't have that. So when I started in 2020, I was right at the bleeding edge of when it had just been legalized. So I got to come up with a generation of now pretty well established trackers all around the state who were also learning at the same time that I was, and just incredible role models. You know, my work through Stern Game Recovery is a small microcosm of a broader statewide network called Minnesota Tracking Dogs. Pretty easy to remember. And we are a network of qualified professional trackers that all work together to cover calls all over the state. So if you've got audience members listening from the Twin Cities, we've got trackers down there. You've got audience members listening from over in Fargo, North Dakota, we got trackers over there. You know, but it's a community for us to all learn from each other. And now at this point in my career, I'm hoping that I can be for another young female tracker what my mentor was for me when I really wanted to get started and I didn't know my ass from my elbow. I had no idea where to start or what to do. And learning from other trackers is the most valuable thing by far for somebody who wants to get started. So I'm now excited to offer that to somebody else and get the ball rolling for another young woman who maybe didn't even know it existed until maybe they hear this interview.
Yeah.
Right. So you hear that. Juliet's looking for an intern.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to come carry water and call for
Yeah, he did stare at me when he said that.
He did.
Yeah.
I just,
I want me to do it.
I mean, it'd be helpful. It'd be handy.
I will be that next young girl.
You're going to do great. I will outsource all of the arrow licking to you, though.
Oh, perfect.
That's
I can't
part of the job
wait.
description.
Right.
I can't wait.
Right. I think there needs to be some kind of training on Juliet's arrow flavors or something like that.
We'll bring out like a flight of arrows.
You should have like a flavor profile chart.
Yeah.
There you go.
If it reminds you of, I don't know, vomit, then it's most likely a liver shot or whatever.
You
makes you
joke that
vomit.
if it makes you vomit, then it's a Texas heart shot. I tell you though, across the country, the whole licking arrows thing or like licking blood is kind of a joke. They don't really expect you to do it. And then I've met some very experienced trackers who've been doing this for decades and like, you really actually do that? Juliet, we joke about that. That's something we used to hate as people. Right. And I'm like, no, it's a diagnostic tool. Thank you. But I really actually do it. But I still, to this day, I will meet trackers who've had boots on the ground for, God, longer than I've been alive. And they're like, Juliet, we mostly just joke about that. I didn't think anybody did it. Here I am. I'm out here doing it. Yeah. It works.
Nice.
It works.
Wow. Got a hell of immune system then.
Right. Like I said, they don't even make dewormers for what I got going on, man. I tell you.
Well, I have spent most of my career in outdoor education out in Colorado. And a lot of that was, dealing with like wildlife biology and tracks and scat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My go-to move was to find a pile of elk scat and, like let the kids come look at it, poke it with a stick and everything. And then I would pick one up and eat it right in front of the kids.
Yeah.
But I had chocolate covered almonds in my pocket and I would swap it out. But they didn't know that.
So how many other people's children did you get to eat an actual piece of elk food?
Never.
You just stop them at the last second.
But I did once have one of the teacher chaperones almost vomit when she saw me eat a chocolate covered almond. That was pretty fun.
I think the worst part about me as a human being that pretends to be a professional is I had someone do exactly that trick to me when I was first learning how to do a lot of wildlife research work out in the mountains, way out west. I was fully on board to actually put a piece of elk poop in my mouth. That's the kind of person I was ready for it. I was like, all right, this is what we're doing now. Monkey see, monkey do. Right. And they almost didn't stop me.
Oh man,
no shame in my game, man.
That's dedication,
right?
That's, just looking at the arrows, dedication,
man. If nothing else, I want in my epitaph on my gravestone that at least Juliet went the extra mile. Right. Man, like there's not a whole lot of things that I won't do in the course of my job so that I can feel like I did a good job. It's not even about the hunter or somebody else's opinion. It's about like me being absolutely spastic, wanting to feel like I did a good job. So I've been known to track these animals 2-3 consecutive days, even the cases that I don't think they're dead. If there's anything in my mind that I'm like, well, it could be this, we're back out there for days in a row, until the hunter themselves is like, okay, Juliet, you got to stop. And I think that's what makes or breaks somebody who's really going to stick with this and do a service to hunters and to the animals that we owe. Not to get too gushy with it, but like really, it's a matter of conservation. Like you said, it's avoiding wanton waste. We as trackers and as hunters owe it to those animals once they're wounded to follow through and go the extra mile and make sure that we're preventing waste and suffering out there.
Absolutely.
So I am so completely incorrigible when it comes to, I'll drive myself crazy. I keep myself up at night. I'll call other trackers. I'll try to go to trackers, be like, I'll buy you a beer if you'll drive 5 hours to come up here and follow us up and check our work on this track, because I don't know what's going on out there. Happens less the older I get and the more experience I have, but it's still, you just never want to feel like you're leaving an animal in the woods. You never want to feel like you didn't do your best. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's psychological warfare. It's agonizing. You have to be a little bit of a masochist to do this job well, I think.
Right. No doubt.
Well, like I said, we've all been there. You think you make the perfect shot and you hit a twig, especially with, archery. You hit a twig, it hits him back. My biggest buck I shot in Minnesota hit a twig and it hit it back. We knew pretty much where it went, but we left it overnight. We did do a small search in the evening because I shot it towards dusk, and Jim came out and we did just a small search. We found the arrow. It's like, yep, it was hit back. So
I did not lick it.
Nope, he didn't lick it.
I did smell it.
I'm proud of you.
He did smell it. Had we known the licking was an option, I would have had him lick it. But
now you know.
Yeah, now we know. So it's like, all right, let's back out. We'll come back tomorrow. And we got back out the next morning. Well, actually afternoon, because we both had to work, and was like, okay, following this deer, we know there's a water hole down here. It had to go for water, especially it was hit further back. And so sure enough, it went, was it 200 yards probably?
Yeah.
And there it was right at the bottom of that ravine.
And honestly, if you hadn't handled that situation as well as you did by letting it sit for that long, you would have been in a world of hurt. One of the biggest issues that I encounter, especially during the rut, during deer season, when everybody, including the deer, has buck fever, is going in too early on a shot like that when it's back. I say a minimum wait time is at least 24 hours in a situation like that, because these deer are tanks. They don't die very quickly. In your case, he only went that 200 yards and you were able to find him. Beautiful. If you had kept pushing that night, you would have jumped him out of that bed. I would almost guarantee it. And then he would have taken you for a marathon. Yeah. So you did phenomenal in that case.
Yeah. And that's what we were afraid of. It's like, well, let's not search too much, because especially when we found the arrow and found out, it's like, oh, it's hit a little bit further back. Let's just let him be, because we don't want that to happen.
And that's perfect. Honestly, I joke about talking myself out of a job, but I really do hope that in the course of doing some of these interviews and talking more with the public, doing seminars like a Bernie's Bear Show, I always want to touch on a little bit of shot placement, a little bit of how to handle a track so that you don't need a tracking dog, because in a perfect world, every animal would be shot awesome and they'd pile up, 5 feet from where they were shot. You wouldn't have to track at all. But I want to save our efforts for those folks that really do genuinely need help. They cannot find that animal by themselves. So if I can get hunters, the hunting community, to be thinking about things like you did, where you just back out, you leave it for the night, come back the next day. Especially when you know it was back, you can save yourself a lot of headache. And in those cases, you didn't need a tracking dog. You were able to find it yourself.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yep. I had one in Kansas that it wasn't shot back, or it wasn't a gut shot, believe it or not. But it was, I thought it was a pretty good shot, but I think I hit one lung. So, and there was a blood trail. And so I shot it early in the morning, and it's like, all right. And it was getting hot. It's like, I'm just going to let it go because I don't want to spook it up. So I went back to the house and waited, and we waited probably 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, now let's go search for it. So we started again at the beginning, walked all the way through. That deer ran 250, 300 yards. What was great about it is it ran in the correct direction to where I could get it with a truck.
There you go.
Very easily. We were walking out, and it's like, where is this thing at? And we look over. Actually, my daughter found it. She goes, it's right there, Dad. It was underneath the tree, so I can drive the truck right up to it.
Oh, that's perfect.
Got it right there, and away we went. But had we probably not waited a few hours, we might have spooked it up, and who knows how long it would have went. But
there's something to be said for, especially with bears, because they tend to go into just god awful cover. There's a point where I tell hunters, like, dude, I'm not even doing you a favor if we find this thing, because then you got to find a way to get it out of here. I don't know how you're going to do that. But really, honestly, if there were two things that I could have hunters consider every time they start a track, where they may not even be thinking they need a tracking dog that's not even on their radar yet, would be to do what you've been doing, is just waiting. Those wait times are so important. If you bump that deer or that bear out of a bed where they otherwise would have died in that bed, they're going to take off like a bat out of hell. They're going to make it extremely difficult to get to them, because then they know they're being pursued. They're going to deliberately go through stuff that is awful. And then you're going to need a tracking dog. You may not be able to find them at all. Yep. Whereas otherwise, if you just left them alone, man, you wouldn't have needed us.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is especially when it comes to bears, and I know I touched on a little bit, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but bears are so anatomically different from deer. And of course, in Minnesota, unless you're in a no quota zone, it can take 6 years, to draw a tag. So you have hunters that are excited to be in the stand. They've been looking forward to this hunt for years. It may have been a square 6 years since the last time they saw a bear, if they ever have seen a bear in person. And I see hunters time and time again, even in camps with guides, even at outfitters. It's so hard for folks just to keep in their head when that bear is on the bait and the adrenaline's up and they got that buck fever. But shooting bears requires a different shot placement than a deer does. It's really important to remember that the bear's anatomy is just fundamentally different from a white-tailed deer. And if I could talk myself out of a job and have every hunter aim just a little bit differently so that they don't wound these bears in a way that needs a tracking dog, my life would be golden. I would love that. So getting folks to pay attention to those wait times, like you were talking about, giving them lots of time, especially deer during the rut, but also shot placements. Oh my goodness. Do we want to get into that? Do we have
I want to know.
All right.
I want you to tell me where to shoot
Let's
that
get
bear.
into it. Oh, be careful, because I will. All right. So buckle up, because nobody calls me because they have a good day going, right? Nobody calls me because their hunt is going perfect. I have seen perfect shots, like dead on bears, like straight through the lungs, bottom of the heart, that just don't bleed. And there are scenarios like that where you may still need a tracking dog's help just because of the way that bears conduct themselves. They go into thick stuff. They don't like to bleed. But more often than not, the majority of bears that we are asked to track are not dead. 60+% of them, I'd say, maybe even 70. And it's because folks are shooting them the way that they would shoot a white-tailed deer. And they're aiming for that vital V, like right up behind the shoulder. They're really trying to keep it tight to the shoulder where they think the shoulder is. But the problem is that a bear's shoulder is a substantially different beast than a deer's shoulder. I have folks that are hunting with big old buffalo guns. They think they're going to use that rifle to punch through the bear's shoulder blade. So even if they hit the shoulder, who cares? That almost never works in my experience. And granted, for the folks that it does work for, maybe they just don't call me. I never hear from them. But I do hear from dozens of hunters a year who shot a rifle into a bear's shoulder and now are looking at a situation where they don't have a dead bear at all. So if I could get every hunter out there in northern Minnesota to start shooting those bears middle of the middle and forward a little, they would never need me. A bear's vitals sit lower and further back than on a deer. A bear's shoulder blade is a weapon in and of itself. I'm serious. You could beat a man to death with that thing. There's 2 ridges on it, as opposed to a deer generally has like one big ridge on that shoulder blade, that scapula bone. Bear have 2. And that ridge can be like the better part of an inch thick. It's just a huge bone. If you are aiming for the shoulder and that bear turns at the last minute, if it's low light conditions, like at last light, and you can't see very easily the way the bear is angled to you, they're a big black animal. It's hard. You're going to hit that shoulder and the bear's gone. If you're aiming a couple inches, usually I say 4 inches is a safe bet, further back toward the middle of the animal, you're in both lungs, you're going to drill it. That bear won't go very far. You may not need to track at all. It may drop on the spot, but you're nowhere near the shoulder and you're not risking a live bear that runs for the hills. So instead of having folks aim for that vital V, tucking it right up behind the shoulder on a bear the way that they would for a deer, and even putting that image in their brains and saying, line it up on the shoulder and then just aim further back, I worry that folks still end up too far forward. They don't aim far enough back once they've landed up on the shoulder. They're so trained in their mind to shoot it like a deer. So instead, I've been trying to get into the habit of telling folks middle of the middle and forward a little. There is a t-shirt slogan for you.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, did you make that up?
I did. Can you believe it? Amazing.
That's brilliant.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I, as a tracker, can help with hunter education so that people don't need trackers. So middle of the middle and forward a little. That keeps you off the shoulder. You're still well in the range of the lungs. If you don't go far enough forward, you're still in the good stuff. You'll still nab the liver. That'll kill a bear, no problem. I'm not trying to drum up more work for myself. I'm not suggesting folks shoot bears in a way that is going to need a tracking dog. My hope is that everybody can hit straight through both lungs and then the bear piles up within 50 yards. But the biggest issue by far that I see with people shooting these bears is that they're shooting into the shoulder, and that just plain won't kill them. Even these really high powered, I've got folks that I can't believe that this bear's not dead. I've got this big, huge, like buffalo gun. I hunt grizzly bears with this rifle. I can't believe it didn't kill this black bear. Dude, you hit that shoulder blade. Even if you break the shoulder, maybe you've got some shrapnel going on there where you are wounding one lung. So you're into the lung on the closest side. One lung ain't going to kill a bear. One lung doesn't even kill a deer a lot of the time.
Right.
You need both lungs or you're in for a rodeo. So having folks think about that shot placement on bears would easily make my life twice as simple, because even then, if they're shooting these bears and they don't have a blood trail, I at least can reliably say that bear is going to be dead and we're going to find it. Whereas a shoulder shot, that stuff gets hairy, man. And those bears are never they're never happy to see you. These really massive 400 or 500 pound bears, they don't like to run very far. So if that bear is shot in the shoulder and it's bedded up like 200 yards from here, what do you think is going to happen when me and my dog walk up to it? Like on a nice sunny morning, we're expecting to see a dead bear and it's laying there alive waiting for us to catch up. Not a good situation.
No doubt.
So that's my spiel, though. I hope that more folks will think of this stuff when they're sitting in the stand, watching that bait, waiting for that bear to come in, is just staying off the shoulder, middle of the middle and forward a little, and then you won't need to call me. And life will be great.
That's great advice. And I think we would be remiss if we did not give a little shout out to one of our sponsors, Dead Nuts Outdoors.
Yes.
Especially with their Vital X targets.
Yeah,
that is the number one way to train on shot placement.
Especially with the bear target.
Especially if you're not used to hunting bears.
You can see those vitals
you
in
can
that
see
target.
exactly where they are, and they are significantly further back than on a whitetail.
Right.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Middle of the middle and forward a little.
You got it. See, if even you can get it, I'm confident everybody listening can get it too.
Stern game recovery.
You got it.
Middle and forward a little.
Absolutely. And I will say I encounter that issue significantly less with deer where folks are hitting the shoulder, but it still happens a huge proportion of our calls. Statistically speaking, over both species, deer and bear, 60% of the animals we're hired to track are not dead. They're just not mortally wounded. They're hit high in the back or in the shoulder, or heck, even brisket shots skimming the underside of them. It happens. But most often it's because people are too close to the shoulder on both a deer and a bear. So frankly, you could even apply middle of the middle forward a little to deer too. Although I think that's a much harder sell because so many folks have been hunting deer for so long that they're trained on that vital V.
Exactly. Right.
So I would say I'm shooting for bear hunters paying attention to that shot placement stuff because I think it matters a heck of a lot more with the way their anatomy is. But even deer hunters, I mean, that can also save folks a lot of grief if they can stay off that shoulder.
Yeah.
My hope is that I talk myself out of work. I don't know how often other folks can say that, but that's where I'm at.
I don't know if Stern agrees with you.
Yeah, I was going to say. I don't know if
furious. Nobody tell her. It's a good thing she doesn't speak English right now.
No doubt. She's like, no, we're going outside trying things.
I want to bite some ass today.
Oh yeah, she does. Well, that's why you guys had invited her as well. I was like, wow, she's a super sweet dog. She's so friendly. She really is. She's a highly trained dog. But I'll tell you, that dog has taught me that there is something to be said for the difference between a well-trained dog and a well-behaved dog.
Mhm.
She is still like, what's that? The dude that does the hurricanes and Looney Tunes, like a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah.
That's Stern on a day that she hasn't gotten to work. So that's her sitting at home right now wondering what the heck is wrong with me.
Right.
The phone isn't ringing.
Well, hey, we could let her chew on the bug-eyed fawn a
There
bit.
you go. She would
She
love
can bite
nothing
its
more.
ass.
If you think his eyes are bugged out now.
That'd be a great picture.
Yeah.
Stern locked onto that thing's ass.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Nothing she would like more, I tell you.
Yeah. Speaking of a Texas heart shot, it looks like he's actively getting one.
Right.
He really does look like he's got implements in places that they don't belong. I'm
He may.
impressed. I didn't think that they would make something look so much like you, Dean.
I know.
I walked in, I was like, oh, it's a spitting image.
Exactly. I'm
Right.
thinking that him and I should do a picture together,
Right.
I think you
So
should.
people can see.
What's that? Face swap?
Yeah.
I think we should
Morphine,
do one,
the
and it'll
morphine,
just
yeah.
like nothing will change.
Right. Or even put it out there like
I
a
mean,
side-by-side photo.
I'd have bigger ears.
You might be slightly cuter.
Oh,
Maybe.
that's a
Man.
hard sell. I don't know.
I don't know. Its face isn't as fat as mine. Close.
Well, he didn't get time to grow into it. I gotta
Right,
give him
exactly.
a little bit.
Yep.
True story. You definitely got him a few years on that guy.
Just a few.
Just
Right.
Just a
Actually, that thing's probably older than I am.
it probably is.
Well, they ain't getting any younger, that's for sure. I mean, there's other mounts that you guys have in here. Phenomenal. They're so beautiful. Really good examples of those rutted out bucks that just have like
Yeah,
a neck with
that's
a
thick.
5-gallon
Right.
bucket.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, man, coming up on those deer when they're still alive, they're more dangerous than a bear is every day of the
Really?
week. Oh, God. I know so many folks whose tracking dogs have been picked up and thrown by these deer. They've been gored. I know a tracker who I hope is listening, who was himself gored by a deer. Yeah, it really is more dangerous during the rut than I think any other time of year, even with bears. And that's saying a lot because these bears are
Yeah.
not happy to see you with any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
No doubt. So can I ask you where you got the necklace from?
This was a bear that we recovered. And actually, this was the first recovery of our career that I really had to give myself a moment and say, okay, we do know what we're doing. And be like, this was a good one. This is a bear that I think would have killed my dog.
Really?
If I didn't stick to my guns and say, I know what this situation is and we need to let it sit overnight. And it was a happy ending. The hunter loved us. He cried. It was a bear recovery that never would have happened without a qualified dog. It was, like they said, the first one of our entire career that I could really sit back and say, okay, not only was that a really good one, they never would have found this without us, but that could have been so bad if I hadn't stuck to my guns. There's definitely an element in tracking, especially when you're first starting out, where you're working for the public. There's so much pressure from a lot of these hunters who just, they feel like they made a good shot. They don't understand why you're waiting. They want to go out now. And not to sound the way that this might sound, but especially being young and female in a field like this, I feel like there's been maybe more self-doubt or imposter syndrome that I've had to work through that maybe folks that are twice my age and have been hunting their whole lives, they just might not experience the way that I did when I was starting. But I really struggled when I was very new at this, putting my foot down and saying, no, we're not going to come out the same night that bear is shot. This is dangerous. My dog will fight that bear. She is not going to win, and I only get one of those dogs. She's once in a lifetime. She's phenomenal. I never want another dog. I want her to live forever. It's taken a lot of work to get us to the point that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
So this bear in particular, they jumped it 3, 4, 5 times the first night it was shot. And it's a big bear. And I'm like, it doesn't want to go that far. It keeps bedding down. You guys need to back out. You might not even need us. Like, I'll be there in the morning, but it might die on its own and you guys will find it in 30 seconds flat, but you got to back out now. And they didn't want to hear that. I actually, if I remember right, not that I'm speaking ill of anybody, it all worked out for the best, but I think they hung up on me when I was telling them, like, you guys need to back out. And it was such a moment of like, professional agony for my part, because I'm sitting there like I'm at home in my PJs. I was very new at this. I didn't have nearly the call volume that I do now as a more established tracker. So I'm like, oh my God, am I being ridiculous? Are they going to find this bear without us and say, I told you so? All the weird growing pains you go through as a new person in a new field.
Right.
But I stuck to my guns. I just had a feeling about that one. And sure enough, they called me back. They say, okay, all right, maybe you were right. We just jumped it for like the 4th or 5th time. We're going to stop for the night. We're going to see you in the morning. I said, all right. Bingo. Well, I'll be damned if we didn't get out there 3, 4, 5 beds and the dog takes us an additional I don't want to exaggerate or overstate it, but I want to say it was probably at least another 600 yards, not a speck of blood. What happens when they bed multiple times like that is bears tend to shift their guts around a little bit. Fat or organs that weren't otherwise blocking a bleeding wound will block the wound once they get up again. And that's also why I'm such a stickler about leaving them alone. Try not to bump your animal. You may not even need a tracking dog, but if it gets up out of a bed, it may stop bleeding. And then you don't have anything to go off of. In this case, they didn't. And that bear went an additional, like 600 yards. And it's just the worst bog you can imagine. It's like the fire swamp out there from The Princess Bride. You just never know what you're going to get into. You take one step wrong and you're hip deep and just sphagnum moss. It's horrible. And this bear had put itself into a tip up that it probably used as a den fairly recently. And it had died in a way that it was whipped around, like almost flipped completely back, watching its own back trail with its head sticking out of a hole that's about yay wide, like basketball sized. You never, ever, ever would have seen this bear in the dark the same night that it was shot, and it died waiting. It was watching its back trail. It knew that there was at least multiple people, but especially if there had been a dog, it knew that people were coming. Well, my dog would have gone in that hole, and that bear would have got her in the face. My dog would not have come back out. And she is the kind of animal, she has no self-preservation. She wants that bear so bad. She would have jumped in that tip up and that bear would have killed her. I have no doubt in my mind. So that was a case that it thankfully didn't turn out to be very dramatic. It was a really nice recovery. It made us look like magic because there was no blood. They never would have found it. But that to me spoke volumes of like, okay, you know what, Juliet, pump the brakes. You might need to give yourself more credit next time. You might know what you're talking about, because in this case, that bear was alive all through the night. It had died very early in the morning. It was still warm and limber when we found it. And that bear would have killed my dog. So that was a big moment for me professionally, in terms of just a big growing pain to go through and say, hey, even if the hunters don't agree, I know how I want to conduct myself as a team. And if the hunter doesn't want to do that, I don't blame them a bit, but this is what we do. And so I carry this claw as a reminder of just how that played out. And as a reminder to myself sometimes that, you got to consider all your options. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to recover as many animals as we possibly can. I want to help as many hunters as we can, but there's nothing that is more important to me than Stern and keeping her safe. Yeah. Like, I'm not even worried about my own safety out there. I'm worried about Stern. So remembering your priorities really is why I wear this thing all the time. It's getting kind of ratty now. I've worn it for years and years and years. But in this case, it was just a really good one. Like I said, first moment where I was like, the heavens have parted and the angels were singing. I'm like, oh my God, we did it. Like that was a real one. Like they never would have found this without us.
Right.
It was a good one.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Overall, could have been a heck of a lot worse, right?
It's a great story.
Yeah.
And since we don't have video, describe the necklace that story was about.
Describe the necklace. It is not an especially big bear. And the worst part about my job is that
it looks like it could do some damage.
The nasty bears are not always the 400 or 500 pound giant Bruins that you would expect. The ones that really worry me are the bears that are going to go a huge distance. They're going to bed up and stuff that you can't see them until you're on top of them. And those inevitably are like 100 to 300 pounds, not the giant bears that you would expect that I think are truly dangerous to the dog. So this is not an especially big bear, probably 200-300. It's on a ratty, sweat-stained, blood-stained, braided piece of leather that I wear around my neck. Not at all like a dignified piece of jewelry. Probably makes me look like some knockoff Daniel Boone militia trash. I don't care. I just wear it as a reminder to myself sometimes of where my priorities need to be, because it doesn't need to be about flashy recovery pictures. Right. It's not about the money. It's not even always about the recovery itself. It's about keeping Stern safe, because that's my partner, man. Like I said, not to get too mushy about it, but like I couldn't do any of this without her. That dog has made me into the person that I am. The least I can do is make sure she doesn't get her face redesigned by a bear.
Right. No doubt.
Fair enough.
Have you ever wore a GoPro or anything as you're tracking just to get videos and stuff like that?
Yeah, I lost it immediately in a swamp. Yeah, I think it lasted like maybe 10 minutes on my person, and then it fell into a giant puddle, and the hunter had to find it behind me and be like, was this yours? I'm like, oh shit, is that still recording? No, I try to keep gear pretty minimal. Yeah. I've definitely had folks ask, and I would love to try that. Maybe for deer it would work out better because it's not nearly as much crawling, but the really fun recoveries in my mind are always the ones that are the hardest to get to. And anything that is not physically zip tied to my person is gone in those cases. I can't tell you how much gear I've lost in the woods trying to like fight my way through thickets and stuff to get at these deer and bear. So maybe someday I'll find a GoPro that's prepared for the job. If somebody out there wants to design one that's meant for like the kinds of stuff we're going through, I would love to try it. But the last time I gave that a go, 10 minutes, if that, and it
That's
fell
crazy.
off.
Yeah.
It was not prepared.
Solid. So, I mean, we've had you here for almost an hour and a half now.
Has it really been? My God,
Yeah.
here I am talking your ear off.
No, that's
I warned
great.
ya.
We love it. We love
That's
it. We love it.
awesome.
So if anybody needs to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Oh, you bet. So if you are in northern Minnesota, then about 100 miles of the Bemidji area, you
Mhm.
can call me directly or check out my Facebook page, Stern Game Recovery. Pretty easy. If you are in the broader Minnesota state, anywhere in the state, Minnesota Tracking Dogs is our statewide qualified trackers network. We have a tracker available in every corner of the state of Minnesota. Like we can get you taken care of no matter what. So if you're a person listening to this and an audience member wants to reach out to me directly and they don't live in my area, I'll get them in touch with the next closest tracker who is. Like I am lucky to work alongside hundreds of other trackers, both around the country and in the state of Minnesota, who can get folks taken care of. And that said, if you've got audience members, because you're a nationwide organization, you're national celebrities, worldwide. Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you told me that now and not before we started. I've been a little nervous. No, anywhere in the country, United Blood Trackers is a national trackers organization. They focus a lot on legislation, helping legalize it in areas that weren't otherwise legal to use tracking dogs. They also have a function on their website that you can plug in your state and your area, and they will find the closest certified tracker to you. Here in Minnesota, we also have a similar function on our websites, minnesotatrackingdogs.com. About as simple as it gets, but you can always ask me and I'll throw a link for it, text it to you or whatever else if you want to put it in descriptions for sure. But locally, here in northern Minnesota, Stern Game Recovery on Facebook every day of the week. You can ring, call me on the phone, day or night, 24/7. It's 218-760-5671. Anywhere in the state, Minnesota Tracking Dogs. It's your safest bet. I'm on the leadership team for that network. I'd vouch for it every day of the week. Just phenomenal trackers available in every corner of the state. Nationally, United Blood Trackers, baby. And that's anywhere in the country and a lot of Canada. If it is legal to use a tracking dog, they have someone in your neck of the woods.
Wow.
So we're we cover all our bases.
Right.
Yeah.
Well said.
awesome.
Holy man.
Right.
Have you had to say that before? Because you did a really good job. It's like a
actually-
spiel.
I talk so much, dude. I talk so much. If anything, I'm shocked that I haven't run us further over time because there's so much to be said and there's so many stories. If anything, I'm definitely never at much of a risk of repeating myself, if nothing else.
That's awesome. No, you're never overtime with us. But,
No.
Well, I'm
We-
sure you
we
guys
can
would
make
love to
this
get
a-
home and get supper.
We can
at
make
some
this a
point.
trilogy.
right, for
Oh,
sure.
Careful.
To be continued.
You know where to find me.
We do know where to find you. We got your phone number, and if that
There
doesn't
you
work,
go.
we'll just stop into the kegging court.
There you go. Well, at least he's got my number. No, I can't tell you guys how much fun it is to sit down and talk with you, and especially just to get a broader reach, talk to more hunters who maybe have never heard about this at all.
Right,
You know, it's
right.
amazing. So thank you so much for having me.
No, I
and
think you
Henry.
provide an
coming.
excellent service. I
Yeah.
wish I could have had access to in the past.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know where to find us now, but
Absolutely.
the hope is always that nobody needs us.
Right, right.
I mean, hunters laugh, but I'll shake their hand at the end of a track and be like, all right, I hope I never see you again.
Yep.
But really, it's we hope nobody needs us, but we're always here if you do.
Right.
Like I said, here locally, in the broader state of Minnesota, anywhere in the country, if it's
Right.
legal to use a tracking dog, I can help you find someone who's qualified to help you. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And-
that's cool.
Your phone number one more time.
it's 218-760-5671.
Man,
And
sounds
you-
like a recording.
And you will not answer between the hours of 3 a.m. and 4:30
You
a.m.
know, the nice thing is I've learned my lesson. My voicemail will coach hunters on what to do. So if you don't get me picking up the phone directly, you'll get my voicemail. It says, I am currently in the field helping another dude. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to back out right now. You're going to send me a text with your location and the kind of animal you want me to track and where it was shot. And I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can. But there's definitely a point in the season. Oh yeah, I turn my phone off at about 3 a.m. because I have to get at least an hour of sleep before I start driving, or I think the DOT will hunt me down.
Oh,
man.
that's cool. Well, we appreciate you making the drive over.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
It was great talking to you and meeting you.
Well, right back at you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, we hope you come back sometime. Tell us some more
Yeah.
stories
Right, well.
after
Right.
beer season, maybe.
Okay, what you wish for, I would love that. You know where to find me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Hope
you
I
know where
never have
find
to
us.
use you, but I would love to meet Stern one of these
Me
days.
too.
Yes.
Mhm.
She would also love that, and that is a threat.
Well, and maybe
Stern's going to bite me on the ass.
Right. I think that's what you mean.
No, she would never.
This dude was gut shot.
Awesome.
Oh,
All right.
good deal.
That wraps it up.
All right.
Did it.
Thank you.
Okay, until next time.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has been building our hunting and conservation legacy over the past 40 plus years through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation in Minnesota for Minnesota.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association and wolf.report proudly sponsor this podcast. However, please note that the opinions, topics, and guests featured may not necessarily align with the views, beliefs, goals, or mission of our sponsors.
Minbow, member driven, bow hunter focused. Join today at mnbowhunters.com.